We're students of Dow Medical College located in Karachi, Pakistan.
And we are joined today again by Dr. Ziauddin. So as you might have watched our previous videos, we are doing this series on USMLE and how to do it and different components of the exam, and Dr. Ziauddin explains this to us as well as you guys. So here we are again.
Yeah.
So what's the topic for today?
So in today's video, we'll be talking about the resources used and how exactly did you go about studying for step 1?
So step 1, and I know that a lot of medical students and graduates are very interested in knowing about this, and I'm going to tell you how I studied for step 1. And there's like one thing that I need to tell you is that how I studied it. Now everybody has different ways and methods of studying, and it doesn't necessarily mean that what I did might work for you. So take it and take my advice very cautiously, like the things that I did and everything, but you don't necessarily have to follow me like step by step into it.
I think it's important just to see how you did it, see if it would work for you. You know yourself best. And go on from there.
Take the opinion, take the advice, and and then formulate a plan which works for you, because everybody has their own way and method of studying. So how I studied for step 1, and I keep saying this, that first aid for USMLE is the holy book for step 1. It is. But you don't just pick up first aid on the first day. Like for example, if you're going in and this is the first day of your studying for step 1, what you need to do first of all is that build up some background knowledge that you can understand first aid for. And I say this particularly to international medical graduates, because we are taught differently as compared to American medical graduates and Caribbean medical students. Our curriculums are different and they're not usually compatible with step studying. So what I would do first is that I would build my basic concepts first to get some background information, and for that I recommend Kaplan video series is a good high yield way of getting basic concepts. There's also Boards and Beyond, but it was beyond my time. It came after I got to know about it after I gave my step 1, but I've been hearing a lot of good feedback from students, and I think that it's also a good revenue to look up at. But again, getting back to Kaplan, what I did was that I watched the Kaplan video series for physiology, biochemistry, immunology, and biostats as well, behavioral science, and pharmacology. And I focused more on the video aspect of it and less on the textbook, because the textbook is a simple reiteration of what the person is saying in the video. So I focused more on the video aspect of it, and I would finish and I would watch it in like high speed so that I could cover it in a very efficiently in a very small amount of time. So I would get the basic concepts from there. For pathology, I would definitely recommend Dr. Hussain Sattar's Pathoma. Dr. Hussain Sattar, if you're listening to me, you saved me in med school. So Dr. Hussain Sattar's Pathoma, also Golgin is very good. Do Golgin from now on, I would recommend that. So when you're done with these like high yield resources, then you step up into first aid, and this gives you like the basic concepts which is important for understanding first aid. Now, the thing that I say that first aid is the holy book is because it's a concentrated, squeezed out, high yield information, basic information that you need to know for the exam. And it's important to memorize first aid, true, but more important than memorization is that you need to understand first aid.
Like if that goes side by side.
Yeah. Like if an arrow is pointing from one thing to another thing, you need to know what that arrow is doing there. Is there any enzyme or cofactor there? What is the deficiency of that enzyme gonna do? You need to understand everything, okay? And memorization is obviously important, but understanding is even more important. And when you build a background base with Kaplan and Pathoma and Golgin, that becomes very easy to understand first aid. So what I did is that I read first aid the first time. I read all the pages of it, understood it, tried to memorize it. Now I need to tell you and take it with a grain of salt that it's like my memorization is pretty much average, I think. So after I got done with my first read of first aid, I wasn't able to recall everything. Okay, I was hardly able to recall about 50% of it. It's only when I started doing my second and third read of first aid that I started understanding and memorizing more and more first aid and retaining more first aid. Now, after you're done with your second or even third read, the more times you read, the better it is. After your third read of first aid, if you pick up UWorld, and UWorld is extremely important. It's an online bank. It's a subscription of 2,500 questions, and those questions are written in a very specific manner, which is similar to the manner in which the questions are asked in the actual exam. So it teaches you a couple of things. First of all, it teaches you how to solve the questions in the exam. So the second thing is that the explanations of all the questions are very high yield and they're important, and they give you additional concepts necessary for answering the questions in the exam as well. So what I would do is that as soon as I picked up UWorld, after doing my second and third read of first aid, I would solve a block of UWorld every day in a random timed manner. By random, I mean that I get one question would be from biochemistry, the other from physiology, the other from pathology, the other from microbiology, the other for ethics. So I would do it in a random way so that my brain would be, would get in sync into switching up from physiology to pathology in a minute, in a second, in seconds. So I did it in a random time fashion. I did one block which is comprised of 40 questions every day, and then after I got done with those blocks, I would read the explanations. Initially, my percentile wasn't great, but as soon as I was going and I was reading first aid every day side by side, then my percentile started increasing, and by the time that I was almost done with my first go of UWorld, I started getting great percentiles, which I was very satisfied with, and that was a marker of progress. One thing that I forgot to mention is that before picking up UWorld, try to give a self-assessment test. Now, whenever you buy UWorld, you get self-assessment UWSA 1 and 2 with it, and there's also other self-assessments like NBMEs, which are similar to the exam, to the actual exam. So try to do a self-assessment like an NBME 15 or 16 before picking up UWorld. Though if you get a low score on it, don't get afraid, because it's only telling you where you stand at the moment. Now, after you're done with your UWorld, at least 2 times if you've gone through UWorld twice, then do a self-assessment. The ones that I found to be particularly specific for the actual score of the exam were UWSA 2 and NBME 18 and 19 in my opinion. So after you're done from your second go of UWorld, give UWSA 2, NBME 18 and 19. And if you get your desired scores, the goal scores that you want, now everybody has different desired scores. Some go for very high, up to 60s, and some go in the upper average range. So if you reach your desired score, then give the exam immediately. Book the test date in the Prometric Center website and give the exam. And I recommend this to all medical students and graduates. You need to give your step 1 exam within 2 weeks of finishing your second go of UWorld, within 2 weeks, because at that moment you have reached your peak. You have reached your peak. You're now used to solving questions every day. Your brain is used to solving questions every day, and trust me, you're miles ahead from where you started. So try to do that. Also, there's one thing that I also forgot to mention, Golgin. I cannot tell how important it is. Golgin, if you're not able to read the textbook, fine, don't read the textbook. Listen to the audio notes of Golgin. It's very easy. He does it in a very humorous way, and he explains very high yield concepts. And you can do it while you're going to sleep or when you're traveling. And I've noticed this as a correlation in all, I've noticed 2 things as a correlation in people who score high. Number 1, they solved a lot of questions, and number 2, they also did Golgin as well. So I would recommend you doing Golgin as well. That is very important. And like I said, you need to give your exams within 2 weeks of finishing the second go of UWorld.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was everything you've used.
Yeah.
But for example, we're trying to study for step 1 as well.
Yeah.
But then the thing with Kaplan for me especially was the fact that the videos are 4 hours long.
Yeah.
Okay, so the solution to that was to speed it up.
Yeah, and put more stock on the videos rather than the textbook.
Okay, and so you just skim the textbook, but
just skim through it.
Did you watch the videos for every single subject?
No. So this is an important thing, and you need to know which sides are better to you and which sides are not. There are certain things that I didn't need to watch a video, like microbiology. I left that out on purpose. I didn't forget not to mention it. I left it out on purpose. The reason is that microbiology is that you're not going to gain much high yield information from microbiology, because a lot of microbiology, besides they're very low yield, concepts are very far and far in between. So it's usually memorization. So rather than putting the time and effort in watching a video of microbiology, I would rather read and try to memorize microbiology.
So wait, suppose a student, so he decides that he doesn't like the lecture for microbiology and does not enjoy the video.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone has a different taste.
Yeah.
So would it be harmful if they go choose another resource for a specific subject?
Yeah.
Or is it okay?
No. Yeah, that's a very good point. And like I said in the beginning of the video, what particularly worked for me doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for you. So, like I said, that I didn't need to do microbiology and do other avenues for it. But and it's good that you mentioned microbiology, because there are other avenues in which you can approach for different subjects. Like take for example microbiology. A lot of students these days are doing sketchy micro, and in which the person is drawing and making correlations between simple things, in which you can memorize an organism and all the pathologies it causes, and it's a very imaginative and creative way of doing that. So that's a good avenue, sketchy micros. Some people do farm from sketchy as well, sketchy farm, and it's working wonders for a lot of people. There's also Anki cards which people use to memorize and to keep like high yield information in the back of their minds. People use flashcards as well, which are similar to Anki cards, so you can use all that stuff as well. So like I said, there's nothing set in stone here for studying for step 1 that you need to do this and you need to do that. You can be creative and imaginative, and you need to know your own strengths and weaknesses and how to tackle those strengths and weaknesses. But what I'm saying is like the basic outline which usually international medical graduates use to study for step 1.
So wait, those are the resources you used.
Yeah.
What was your general timeline?
Okay.
Do you remember?
Alright, so my timeline was different in the fact that I started studying from my step 1 in my final year of med school, from the beginning of my final year of med school. And so a lot of the times I had breaks in between because I had to study for my med school exams as well, and I had to give my med school exams, and then I had to wait for the results, which again is like an anxious process and everything. So I kept getting breaks in between. So like I gave the exam, like if I was to break it down in a couple of months, I would say that I studied for it like, let's say 10-11 months. I studied like 10-11 months for the exam, for the step 1 exam, with breaks in between, like 2-month break in between. The usual average time, if you're studying every day consistently, by every day I don't mean like every day, and this is important, that if you're studying in a week, you should at least take a day off in the week to prevent burnout. That's like one of the tips that I would give. Now getting back to it, like the average timeline for an international medical graduate is like, let's say 7 to 8 months. That's like the average timeline. Now again, this is not set in stone. A lot of people I've seen like give the exams way before that. I've seen people give the exams in 4 months of studying, and I've seen people give the exams after 15 months or even 2 years of studying. So it all depends on how far you've progressed and what are your expectations, what are your score demands, and if you think that you can improve and work on your weaknesses a bit more. So it all depends on that. But the average timeline is like 7 to 8 months, I'd say, if you're studying like consistently and persistently.
Okay.
Right. And is that a dedicated study period, or?
Well, for step 1 is obviously dedicated. And when you're studying for USMLE examinations, you have to be dedicated. There's no other rule about it.
Like 8 to 10 hours studying
No. First of all, I can never study 8 to 10 hours studying per day unless it's like the final week of the exam. I could never study that. I get burned out pretty easily. So what I'm saying dedicated, there's 2 ways in which you can think about it. Either you can make targets that this is the topic how much I need to cover it, and whether it gets covered in 3 hours or it gets covered in 9 hours, this is what I need to cover. Or the second thing is that you can do yourself in hours, like, no, I need to study this amount of hours. Usually what I would do is that I would, and this is not really an accepted way, but what I would do, and this would work for me, and I've been doing this for a long time, is that I would measure myself on the basis of hours. Now what I would, like when I'm going to college, when I'm going to med school, I would make a target of at least studying 5 hours a day. When I'm not going to college, I would make a target of studying like 6 and 6.5 hours a day. So 6 hours a day of studying, dedicated studying, is good studying. That's what I would call. I wouldn't recommend you studying 10 hours a day every day, because I guarantee you that after 3 days of studying, you're gonna get burned out. Don't study 10 hours a day.
That's special study.
Yeah, and the thing is that if you're studying 10 hours a day, you're starting to your capacity to gain information, it greatly decreases. Now,
you just get saturated.
Yeah, you just get saturated. You start zoning out. You lose your concentration. You lose your focus. So it all turns out to be counterproductive, and then you go into a burnout, and then you go into depression because you're not studying even though you should be, and then a whole positive vicious cycle starts. So I'm saying pace yourself. Don't overdo it, but don't underdo it. Strike the balance. I would say 5 to 6 hours of studying is good dedicated studying.
All right, I think that was pretty good for the day, and I think that's it
for today's video.
Yeah, and if you like the video, then do press the like button and share it with your friends, and do subscribe to our channel because we will be uploading more content like this in the future. So yeah, that's it.
See you next time.
Goodbye.